Hello, good people. We are back with another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. My name is Nnamdi Osuagwu. I'm your host. We have a very special guest. I'm really excited to bring a good friend of mine, Kennedy Torkura, as a guest today for the Tech Behind FinTech. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nnamdi. I'm so happy to be here with you today.
I'm excited. I'm excited for the topic that we are about to get into. So today's topic, the tech behind fintech, can security chaos engineering prevent breaches in the cloud? And for those of you who do not know what security chaos engineering is, we're going to talk about it and get into it. But before we do, we have to read the bio of my guest. Very impressive bio, expert in the cloud security space. And here we go. Kennedy Torkura is a cybersecurity researcher and cloud security engineer. He has spent over 10 years in cybersecurity and is passionate about exploring the intersection of security chaos engineering, incident response, risk analysis, and threat detection in the cloud security. He has published more than 20 academic papers about several cloud security domains and was a contributing author in the first O'Reilly book on security chaos engineering. Also note, Kennedy is currently a PhD student. I think you're about to complete. You're really close to completing.
Exactly. I,
So
I'm
shout
just
out. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say I just have to hand in my thesis and then defend, and that's all.
So soon we'll be calling you Dr. Kennedy Takora. I can't wait. I'm excited for that. So
Yeah, sure.
So the audience knows, shout out your university and where you're located right now.
All right. Yeah. Currently, I'm in Berlin. Actually, Potsdam, which is about 30 minutes out of Berlin, and I'm studying at the Hasso-Plattner Institute, which happens to be an institute that it's actually under the University of Potsdam, which is also based in Potsdam. So Potsdam in Germany, not in the US.
No, that's awesome. And as you know, I really enjoy our international guests when we have them on. It's just really great seeing both the perspective and Kennedy and myself both have roots in Nigeria. So that's the home base right there. So always excited to have a fellow on the show as well. So I'm in the US, you're in Berlin, Germany. So yes, let's kick things off. So those who are familiar with our show, we talk about the technology behind fintech and the financial services industry. But before we hop into the topic of the day, we always talk about our current news. So let's get into it. The first one I want to talk about is news about stable coins. So before we talk about the news, let's just define what a stable coin is. It's a cryptocurrency, digital currency that is linked to an underlying asset, such as a national currency or precious metal, such as gold. The main types of stable coin include fiat, which is like money backed, cryptocurrency backed, or commodity backed stable coin. So the news of the day currently, there is a stable coin called Iron Titanium, and it basically had a huge drop to, like, I think it went from to zero. I think Mark Cuban was an investor, and he's now calling for regulators to determine what constitutes a stable coin. So some of the main stable coins that people know are Tether and USDC. So I want to read something from another article. As cryptocurrency trading has exploded, so has the use of stable coins. Right now, investors primarily use stable coins as a place to park money on cryptocurrency exchanges without having to transfer cash back to their bank accounts. The largest by far, with a market capitalization of 62.6 billion, is Tether, which is incorporated in Hong Kong. US dollar coin USDC has a market value of 23.8 billion and was created by the Center Consortium, a partnership between crypto payments firm Circle, Internet Financial, and US crypto exchange Coinbase Global Inc. So just want to kind of give you back. So like sometimes, you're in the crypto trading space you may buy and sell and get out of one crypto to another, but you don't want to necessarily transfer that money back into your bank account. So you park it in a stable coin because of the lack of volatility. So with this major drop in iron titanium, it kind of shows that this particular stable coin is extremely volatile. So I understand Mark's Cuban point for asking regulators to start defining what is a stable coin. Kennedy, what are your thoughts about that?
I mean, it's very very exciting. You know, the whole cryptocurrency, the way they are impacting our lives, especially our financial lives. It's very exciting, you know, and you see a lot of news, a lot of instability, you know, ups and downs, you know, a lot of, let's say, discussions between regulators and the technologies that are actually operating these systems. And it is exciting. So it's a nice scenario to watch. But on the flip side, I always think about those who are actually, you know, investing in these technologies. Some people put in a lot of money, like some people put in virtually everything they have, and I don't know how they're able to, you know, manage in situations where they go down. I know obviously when they go up, when they make profit, it's happy days. But when they lose money, I have no idea how they manage it.
I mean, listen, but I guess look, I investing 101, right? It's just everybody talks about diversification of your assets, whether that's in some crypto, some real estate, some stock. Some people gambled. I mean, I know I met someone who got extremely wealthy on Bitcoin early. He would take portions of his paycheck back when no one was talking about it every single week and invested it. And in 2017, when it hit like 17,000, the guy was a multimillionaire. You know, so, but you know, that's one story. That I know people got in real late and when it was high, and then it wiped them out, and they might not have had the patience to wait until 2021 when it jumped. So I totally understand your point.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to my audience, the audience of the Tech Behind FinTech. Happy Friday. If you're on, put a comment saying happy Friday so I know you're listening to us and watching us. The next news article of the day. Let's get into another one. We're gonna move more into the cloud space. BMO Financial Group has selected Amazon Web Services as its new cloud provider as it looks to streamline its internal business processes and become a cloud-first organization. Just so you know, if you're not familiar with BMO Financial Group, is currently the 8th largest bank in North America with over 12 million customers and 950 billion in assets. The bank will also migrate its online and mobile banking applications to AWS. It's a Canadian bank. And the goal is to modernize its banking platforms and build new digital financial services application. Before I let Kennedy hop in, one more aspect. It will migrate its online and mobile banking applications to AWS to further push cloud adoption within the company, including creating a consolidated data lake, adopting serverless architecture, deploying advanced capabilities like high performance computing and machine learning. Kennedy, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's a very exciting news. On the one hand, you see, I mean, it is expected, right? So a few years back, you would find it would sound crazy to hear a company, you know, a bank that is migrating everything to the cloud. It sounded like magic, you know, but now you see it happening in real life, and this is just one of many that you know, one of many banks that are adopting this strategy, which I really love. Last year in Germany, Deutsche Bank, which happens to be one of the biggest banks, had a similar collaboration with Google Cloud. And then they also signed, I don't remember the number of years, but you know, this sort of official agreement between an institution and the cloud. And one thing I picked from this BMO's offer is they are going to like train their staff in cloud skills, which is really awesome. I mean, these guys are going to be having, they're going to be trained how to operate in the cloud, which is a great, I think every employer that decides to go this route should really think about organizing the training procedure for their staff so as to make it easy, because it is one of the biggest problems that we have in the cloud space today. lack of skills, So I think it's great. On the other hand, for the cloud service providers, today it's not just about them, providing cloud services, but they also have to have, a setup where they have in their own employees, in their own organization, they have staff that are dedicated to supporting, let's call it special customers. So like a bank comes in and they actually have to give them very special treatment because, in the end, it's a special agreement. It has special SLOs and stuff like that.
No, I mean a few good points that you've made that I want to touch on. Number one is cloud training. I'm a huge fan of training and things of that nature. And what we saw, and I think Capital One is a good example. Early back when, because it was like one of the first banks to really embrace AWS and so forth. And that was the thing. A lot of the people were getting trained, and we're seeing right now that as they if you start talking about migration into the cloud, one of the recommendation is definitely upskilling staff and getting the certifications. Look, I drank the Kool-Aid. I have a AWS solution architect. It was helpful to understand it. So it was like, took me. I ain't passed. I'm not gonna say I passed the test the first time, but I did pass the test. So
it doesn't. It doesn't matter. You got the knowledge, man.
Exactly. But it's one of those things, you get it, and it's now, even if you lay off of it for a while, like I was recently setting up an EC2 for an EC2 is one of their servers. I'm just told, I don't like using acronyms about explaining it. And even I was like going through it. I haven't set it up in a while. I was like, wow, it's taking me more time than it did before. So it's like you have to constantly be on it and play around with it. But that's a great point. The next point you made about more banks embracing it, what we've been talking about, and I think as part of the news section, I don't know, it was December. I don't want to misquote, but we did talk about the Deutsche Bank and GCP contract, because we talk about that news article sounds very familiar. Like in this section of the show, we brought it up. They have to compete with fintechs, right? Look, you look at traditional investment banks. Those are some of my clients, and one of the biggest, they're literally afraid of becoming. One particular bank said, we do not want to become Blockbuster. We're a X 100-year-old bank, and we understand that these guys are, you have threats now, if you're from that perspective, from non-traditional banks, like Facebook is a fintech, right? Because you look at WhatsApp page, you have all these like software companies getting into the space, then you have the startups getting into the space, and to an investment bank, I look at the analogy as it's like, little bees stinging you. One bee may not do anything, but a swarm of them can literally kill you. So you have to adapt or you have to die, man. That's just the bottom line. So, moving from legacy infrastructure and migrating to the cloud is a good play. I mean, especially if you look at the 12th largest bank doing that. More obviously, other banks are following suit, but we see this to come. And also another point that you raised, I was in those conversations 10 years ago, in which in these investment bank clients, and taking something off-prem, they would look at you like you have two hands. So, like, what are you talking about? Like, it's not secure. We're not going off-prem. We're staying. But like, this is technology. It's rapidly changing, and we saw over the last 2 decades, the change is even getting more exponential, quicker, more. I mean, being in this field for like the time I've been in it, at a certain point, okay, these are the things I have to understand. Now the space is just boom. So it's constant things you have to understand. It's like, oh wait, wow, this is new. I mean, and this, even before we jump into the topics, I think it's a good segue. I want to mention this note, because we're going to now, with obviously as you expand to the cloud, you have to think about security. This week, Bank of America's CEO Brian Moynihan said Monday the company has ramped up its cybersecurity spending to over $1 billion a year. I became CEO 11 and a half years ago. We probably spent $300 to $400 million, and we're up to over $1 billion. the institutions around us, other institutions and my peers spend like amounts, and our contracting parties spend like amounts. So, yeah, I mean, we talk about evolving, we talk about cloud, we talk about different things. Security is a question. So I think security is not a question, security is on top. Now, $1 billion, not just like, okay, I'm going to spend $1 billion for the lifetime of my, or no, a year, $1 billion allocated to that. And that's one of the biggest banks, and others are following suit. This brings us to cloud security. I think that's an excellent segue. Security chaos engineering. Tell us about it. What is security chaos engineering?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I mean, it's nice that I like the way you kind of moved from this news about heavy investment in cybersecurity, and linking it to security chaos engineering. And I would just like to borrow that approach, because security has to be part of the whole IT process, whether it is cloud security, whether it's IoT security, whatever kind of security you're talking about. It has to be there from day one. It has to have enough support, enough funding support, enough support from the management, and so forth. And so what we have seen, especially as companies, enterprises begin to adopt the cloud, is the attacks we are seeing are beginning to get more and more complex. And they're essentially complex because cloud systems are distributed systems, and as they become more complicated, it becomes it becomes impossible for us as humans to model that entire infrastructure, to have it in our heads, to know exactly what is happening. We lose visibility, we lose understanding of it. And what Netflix did about 10 years ago, when they were going through their digital transformation, it was that they were migrating this same thing we are talking about the banks are doing now. They were doing it they started it like 10 years ago, migrating from on-premises data centers to the cloud. And they moved to AWS. Now they got to AWS and they had a problem where virtual machines shut down without announcing. They just shut down without, there was no way they could actually predict. And so it was a huge problem. And then the question was, okay, how were they going to design such a system that helps them to overcome this problem? And that was how, that was how Chaos Monkey was born. And Chaos Monkey was born, so that it will implement what we now call chaos engineering. So by definition, I would just use the definition that has been put by Netflix themselves. It says that chaos engineering is the discipline of experimenting on a system in order to build confidence in the system's capability to withstand turbulent conditions in production. So essentially, you want to have some sort of confidence that when you deploy your systems, whether they are applications, containers, they are servers, they are serverless systems, you want to be confident that when they have unfavorable conditions in the cloud or wherever, they will not fail. And it is only chaos engineering that does this to you by introducing those same unfavorable conditions in a way that is planned, in a way that is regulated, in a way that is controlled, and trying to observe how those systems will behave when you inject these failures. And by doing that, you understand how they behave, and then you plan or you implement measures to prevent them from failing.
That's a lot, right? So let's unpack that for the audience, because it's a lot of information. I want to what do they say? What's the best way to eat an elephant, right? One bite at a time, right? So
yeah.
Two things. Number one, before we get into security chaos engineering, we're going to talk about chaos engineering and where it stemmed from. So the first point, chaos engineering stemmed from an internal project within Netflix, right?
Yes.
They were on-prem. They were going to, at the time, migrate into the cloud. Once they got there, they started to, the biggest concern, obviously, for online video streaming platform is availability. And we've all been in situations where, back in the days when we used to watch this stuff and things will freeze and you're in the middle of your binging on an entire season, and now it's like frozen and you need to figure out how this thing ends. And it's very frustrating. It's not life or death, but it's extremely frustrating. And obviously to Netflix, that's a major business concern for them. So they want to figure out, okay, servers shut down, how do we recover? So in that process, they started to design this methodology called chaos engineering, right? And so, obviously, unavailable servers are unplanned. Like we can't predict when something's going to go down. So they built this tool in which they labeled, which Kennedy talked about, Chaos Monkey. So they built the Chaos Monkey tool, and what that randomly did was take servers offline, and then they had the methodology behind the scene to basically recover from that, and it was an act for their resilience. So, and I think that tool later on, it created other tools, and they all group it under this thing called the Semian Army, right? So
exactly,
that's like the roots now of chaos engineering, right? It's so funny because this show's mainly about finance and that, and then even that concept in the financial services. And I remember having these conversations. Oh, look what Netflix is doing. They're like, you're not doing that in production. Like, are you crazy? But Netflix is because and when you start talking about chaos engineering, you mentioned a thing called experimentation. So no, these experiments, it's not like they just put it in production. They started a development environment, obviously, but the goal, like anything in development, is to eventually go to production. So that idea, and I don't remember it, and I was trying to, and you might know this, you probably, because there was a famous story in which it was some sort of conference going on. Like I think it was maybe the AWS conference or whatever, and one of the regions went offline, and everybody was like rushing out, but the Netflix guys were calm, right? You remember that story?
Yeah. I think
I couldn't find. I didn't know. I definitely heard the story before, and I remember reading. I just couldn't find it before the show. Can you refresh us on that story? And I think that's a good point to why this chaos engineering concept is so valuable.
Oh yeah, sure. So so Netflix they created this tool called Chaos Monkey, and it just did the very like the basic let's say the basic unity we have in cloud compute is a virtual machine. So this Chaos Monkey goes around and takes off virtual machines. But this is like the first layer, and if you wanted to go a little bit higher, you're talking about AWS regions, which is like a couple of geographical regions that are usually bunched, created together, categorized together. And so Netflix, they wanted to scale up this strategy to be able to cover a region. So to say, if a whole region fails, they want to be able to survive. They want to be able to be resilient when a region fails. But somehow, I think even up till now, AWS doesn't offer an API, because you must understand that all of these procedures, we're doing it using AWS APIs that gives you the channel, the communication path to talk to this infrastructure. So AWS doesn't have an API to say, I want to kill an entire region. And so in the end, they were able to design it in a way, a combination of actual fault injections and some simulation. So they did it, and then they had the capability of shutting down a whole region and also still surviving. And so as if they knew it was going to happen sometime later, AWS had one of the regions. It happened, I think last year also, there was a whole region that was knocked off. And then they were safe, because this is something they had trained for. This is something they had sort of practiced, and they mastered the art of surviving when a region goes offline, when there's a region that has an outage. So they were like, they were cool, they were happy. It was like every other day for them.
when I heard that story, I mean, it was just amazing. Like, one of my passions is around DevSecOps, and that's basically looking at the development operations pipeline, but adding security to it. And it's just so many different aspects to it. And in chaos engineering always fascinated me. And now when I heard about your security chaos engineering, I'm like, wow. And I remember when we had our conversation. When did we talk? Like a year ago? We talked a while ago. I remember we had the conversation. It was a video conversation, and we posted parts of it
Yeah,
on LinkedIn, but way
yeah,
before the show started.
yeah.
And
You
and,
you you
and
you you, you you insisted that we had to. I mean, I just yesterday I was telling my wife about what you did, because I meet a lot of people on LinkedIn. Not everyone makes an effort to like speak to you like, video conference. Some of them, they make efforts maybe if there is a need for something, but you took the initiative and you say, hey, what's up? We connected, and usually I connect with people I like to have a video call just to know you, to know them better. And I was like, wow, this is cool. We hopped into the call, and then you insisted again. You wanted to take a screenshot of both of us,
it was a screenshot.
talking, a screenshot, and I was like, oh, this sounds really nice. And you took it, and then you posted it later on, you with a short text. Okay, this is Kennedy. We met on this. It was really nice. Yeah. Sorry to cut you.
No, that's also. I remember it was we video, but then we took a screenshot. We talked about. No, it was great. But in that initial conversation we had, I have been fascinated
Yeah.
by your security chaos engineering concept and what you are basing your thesis and dissertation on in your research. Because like I knew about chaos engineering, and obviously with Netflix and constantly seeing how can we take that same methodology and apply it to finance or different fintechs, as they mature. Because you cannot, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't
Yeah.
feel chaos engineering is applicable to environments that are not matured yet. I think you have to get a certain level of maturity, then you start introducing. Would you agree with that?
Totally, I do agree, because it is a combination of several things. Firstly, you got to have you shouldn't be just moving to the cloud and trying to do it. Even if you want to use Netflix as a kind of as a reference point, you must understand that these were highly seasoned engineers that they were using, and these were people who understood exactly what to do, and therefore they could apply it at that stage. But adopting chaos engineering, the first part of it, as far as I'm concerned, is about maturity. The next part of it is about culture, which is closely related to maturity, but it's something else, because culture is about people who are ready to accept certain norms. So you want to be a company that accepts failure as a learning opportunity. You need to have that as a culture. Otherwise, you will face people who will stand against it. And I had a chance of discussing with a couple of people, even in Germany, in a huge transportation company, and they wanted to introduce chaos engineering to their company, and they found it very difficult in the beginning, and later on they kind of they were able to think deeply about it, and they were able to bring together the most important people across different engineering functional units. So that's another point also. It's got to be, it's a cross-functional activity. So you wouldn't say because it's security you wouldn't reach out to SRE or to developers, because at some point in time it reaches out to them naturally, and then you will hit a roadblock because they would probably not like it.
You know what? But I think that's an important point to touch on, right? That cross-functional, because it's universal, not just with chaos engineering, but when you start looking at all methodologies, whether you look at agile, whether you even look at a threat modeling discussion, whether you look at, I mean, I could keep going on with all these methodologies we study and implement, right? It's all
Yeah.
about cross-functional and bringing that cross-functional team together in the perspective of both technology, non-technology, the business, operations, development, security. And when you even talk about DevSecOps and shifting left, all of that needs to play in. The days of these silos
Yeah.
I think are becoming, it's obsolete. I mean, if you want to take your firm to the next level and establish a certain level of maturity, I think it's obsolete personally. So that's just another case in point why, cross functionality. I mean, if you think about it, right? Even if
Yeah.
you're having a disaster recovery discussion, you
Yeah.
need cross-functional. I mean, it's not just a bunch of technologists in the room. You need to have to take from the business. I mean, so it's seeming like that's a constant theme that always comes up when you are talking about these types of initiatives, and obviously for chaos. So, question for you now, right? So, it's so funny because I think I know the answer to this question. So it's like we know from we're very aggressive people. I mean, you're looking at chaos engineering. Most people will just be fascinated with chaos engineering by itself. You're like, how can I do? Why can we take this to the next level now for security? Where did the
Yeah.
idea come
Yeah.
from?
Oh yeah, that's I love talking about the idea because for me it came in, I would say, naturally, and I stumbled upon security chaos engineering mistakenly. And essentially, we had this project, and in this project we had to build a prototype cloud security posture management system, which is another buzzword, but at that time, and I'm talking about sometime around 2018, we built it to solve a specific problem, and it wasn't then called the fancy name it is called now, but essentially we were building a system that helps you to detect when you have misconfigurations in the cloud, and also helps you to understand when there are suspicious activities, basically. So we build a system, a prototype system, and as it happens in academia, it is expected, especially when you are writing a paper about your findings, that you measure what you're talking about. Yeah, you want to prove it, you want to measure it, you want to carry out experiments that sort of compare what you have with what is existing, so that you can show the value, so you can clearly show that it's something new and it works well, or it has certain limitations. So we wanted to test this cloud security posture management, and that was when we started looking around for tools that will help us, because in security, if you were, let's say, improving on a web application scanner, maybe you added some modules that made it to be faster or more efficient. One way of testing it will be for you to go out and pick something like Kali Linux or Metasploit, and then will just construct some kind of attacks that are applicable to your environment, and then you will just orchestrate those attacks against your system, and then you can kind of measure how it performs, how it defends the system, the kinds of attacks it's able to block, and false positive rates and stuff like that. So for us, unfortunately, there weren't systems that could do this for a CSPM. And it was a big one for us, because we didn't think about it at the beginning of this project. And then we sat down and started thinking deeply. And we just said, well, because we had worked in this cloud area for quite a while, we can perceive how things can go bad. We can perceive the kinds of attacks that could happen. And then we started writing scripts to implement these attacks by ourselves. Okay, so after we wrote a couple of scripts, things like how you can exploit an S3 bucket, how you can compromise policies, identity access management policies, or even S3 bucket policies, and all sorts of things. And yeah, we wrote those scripts, we did it, and then we wanted to write about it, and we started looking at the literature around those sorts of attacks, and we discovered there was a thing called Chaos Monkey, and we had a look at Chaos Monkey, but then we saw that what we did was clearly different, because Chaos Monkey, as you said in the beginning, was looking at availability problems. We are looking at problems around integrity, problems around confidentiality, and certain types of availability that are more security focused. And so clearly we saw, well, we could easily tell in our paper, or we could tell people that, well, what we have just done is it's like Chaos Monkey but it has so and so differences. And so this is how we wrote the paper. We did experiments, we carried it, and I must tell you that it wasn't so easy. So even from academia, the reception was like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" I remember clearly because what we did was when we wrote the paper, the next paper was to explore more deeply this method because it was really fascinating to us. So we started investigating just this method to kind of expand on it to make it much better. And we wrote another paper, and it was accepted. And I remember one of the comments, one of the reviewers was saying, well, he said, I don't think a CISO will allow you to deploy such a tool in his company. But it sounds interesting, so the paper is accepted. And so even when I went to make the presentation, also I had a lot of comments, most of them not really positive comments, but that was the genesis. That was how we found ourselves, in this situation where we were writing papers, we were doing these experiments, and we were sort of pointing people to chaos engineering, but saying, but it has a little difference.
Wow, amazing. I love the story. Just from multiple aspects. Before I jump into my comments, let's shout out a commenter. Lincoln Brewster says, interesting conversation, gives us a thumbs up. Thank you very much for tuning in and commenting, Lincoln. Appreciate you. And to everyone, if you look, I know this topic might be unfamiliar to some, but if you have questions, just shoot them out. It's any question, how complex. If you just want to get an understand, if you're confused, post it, and we'll do our best to clarify. I want to jump into that story, which, as a technologist, as a professional in the security space and DevSecOps, doing some cloud work, as a student, a PhD student, I'm just blown away, man. Like, seriously. Like I just think we should just take a moment to just acknowledge what Kennedy just talked about. So initially, you are running your experiment. You're basically devising a paper on a certain path, right?
Exactly.
You come to a point where, you know what, this current path is not really what we really want to see. We really want to see security aspects in line with chaos engineering. You now go and look at open source tools like you mentioned in Kali, Metasploit. You don't find anything that can do exactly what you're seeking to do. You start looking at the chaos engineering methodology. You say, listen, it's good, but it's really focusing on availability still. We want to focus more on security. You look at the market, nothing's there, and you build your own. It starts off as an MVP. So you're starting writing basic scripts to saying, okay, you know what? The S3 bucket has certain policies. We can manipulate that, and let's see how we recover. There's certain policies can be around EC3, around IIM, around I hate using acronyms because people around identity access management, right? Around these things. So you start basically creating these scripts to modify those policies so that it's basically open. It's not secure. It's not hard. You're unhardening. I don't know if that's even a word, but you're doing the opposite of hardening your system. Then you see, okay, how can we recover? And you build a tool around it. First, you publish papers on it. People say, you know what, guys, you're crazy. I mean, and I feel the pain of academia because, I mean, especially like for me, I started this PhD journey like last year, so I have industry years of experience, like real industry. So
real industry
now to academia. Sometimes I'm not calling it up. Sometimes it's not aligned, industry and it's not fully aligned, and I only can say that now because I'm in both, right? So I can see how someone in the industry, me, can hear what you're talking about and get totally excited, like, yo, this is awesome. wow, what are you doing? And then I could just see how some of the academic could just be like, no, they're not going to accept it. And this is not like, what are you guys wasting your time for? And I see that difference clear as day. You press forward and you continue to build this. So the audience knows, what's the name of the tool?
Yeah, the name of the tool is Cloud Strike. Cloud Strike.
And I have some inside information on that. You also now are at a point where you receive some seed funding for CloudStrike, correct?
Yeah. Some sort
Dude,
of seed funding. We are working on it because it is such a good idea, and I must I like it. Nnamdi, you talked about the disparity between academia and industry, and that played out to me very much. So when I was having these kind of kickbacks from the academia, I continued to look out to research. So what happens to an academia, an academic first, what you do is to do some sort of literature review, on academic platforms, like platforms where you can get and can have access to academic material, journals, papers. I didn't find any material that supported what I was doing. And so the next thing I did was to search the open internet. And then I came across a few articles that were written by a guy called Aaron Reinhardt, you know, and Aaron happens to be the person who started applying chaos engineering concepts to cybersecurity. So he also he had a couple of articles, and then I reached out to him, and then he was really excited about it. That was really encouraging to me, and we ended up having a talk. And I sent him a copy of one of the papers, and we had a talk. And he was like the first person I would say that actually was like excited about it, encouraged me, told me, okay, even if the people in academia are not excited about it, I can tell you that people in the industry will be excited about it because they are excited with me about it. So this was the point where I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go all into this stuff and continue to expand on it, regardless of what the kind of support or kickbacks I'm getting from academia.
and and a good part of this story, right, is now uh the educational side academics, they're excited for it because they're about to get some IP on that, correct?
Yeah. This is, sometimes some things are just a function of time. Sometimes we have seen it happen before, even companies who are too early with certain products. For example, Microsoft was early with the iPad, and somehow it failed. The project failed. You fast forward some years later on, Apple started it, and it's like everybody wants to have an iPad. So it's similar here. Like initially, it wasn't a thing, and afterwards, when the influence of the industry started overshadowing the academia, it's now becoming a thing. Everyone is talking about it. Obviously, that some of the people in the industries are already getting across to the people in the academia to sort of provide them some support, some academic or theoretical support for these concepts.
I mean, there's so many. Look, I want to say a few things. Number one, your story, you inspiring the hell out of me, man. Because in terms of creating a product with while you're in school doing your research, that is definitely hashtag goals of mine. So the way you pulled it off, and and just the entire story, I think I watch a lot of like motivational videos. This is one of the first videos that I'm actually a part of that I'm going to rewatch anytime I get discouraged in my journey. I think I'm going to watch. I'm gonna. It's a certain time to a certain time. I'm going to watch just to hear this story again and again and again. I look. I absolutely love it. Right. Totally. Like I said, it's been so on my mind. I want to be a part of this, whatever way I can be a part of this project that you're doing. And as because I really see, like I said, I'm partnered with different vendors in the cloud space. in the security space. I mean, you know, way we do our business is as we see tools that we use that can help our clients, we just form a partnership with that particular vendor. And it just, you know, that we understand we're working with their team, and then we have to implement it for clients. It just, everything just works. So, you know, obviously that's the one thing. There's like tons of vendors out here in the security space. Because, you know, when you start talking about firms spending $1 billion a year, that's going to open the space up to tons of vendors. And obviously, as we know, not all vendors are built the same. So your company and what you're building is something I want to be a part of. I don't care in whatever capacity, even if it's an investment side. I just think it's fascinating, and because I'm in this field, I just see, like, I was always blown away by chaos engineering, because I was always thinking, how can we apply that to fintech? How can we apply that to financial services? And I know some more traditional banks might be a little bit more apprehensive. And now when you have the security side, well, I keep rambling. The question I have for you now is, you see how in chaos engineering, when they perform these experiments, oh, you know what, people, I want to do before I forget, I want you, Kennedy has like various articles, and I want you post on the comment side so everyone has it. There's a Medium article he did on Medium. I want to post it right now. I'm going to add it to the comments so you guys have reference points to this stuff. I'm going to call it Security Chaos Engineering. In the article, he has so many great links. You post it right now. I'm going to Control V it. It's the great thing about being on these types of tools. All right, everyone should now have it. Yep, it's on all platforms that we subscribe to. I didn't want to forget that. So you see in chaos engineering, you set up an experiment, and you can now put that in your dev environment, and then you could promote it to production. How do you do that with security chaos engineering?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great that's a very great question, because you know, as it is now, the whole idea of shifting stuff to the left is, I think security is the field that benefits the most from the shift left movement or idea, because before now security had used to be like a gatekeeper, and security used to be that activity that is done just before release. All right. So now you talk about security chaos engineering, and you talk about, firstly, the most important part of security chaos engineering is that it can be applied to different abstraction layers. And what I mean by abstraction layers is, you know, when you look at the 4Cs of cloud native security, which is a concept that was released by the Kubernetes security team, you got the cloud layer, we got the code layer, we got the container layer, right? So you're talking about this the CI/CD pipeline. We're talking about the code, the source code. So it means that, okay, you're building a product. You want to check whether maybe it's vulnerable to SQL injection, or it's vulnerable to cross-site request forgery, or any of those things, maybe the OWASP top 10. All right. So you are now constructing those faults that inject these very attacks. And these faults can be applied at any, at any part of the life cycle of the application. You could just start applying those, injecting those failures right from the beginning, the very left of your pipeline. You just have to. I mean, there is nothing different from how you do it. Just imagine that it's the way you do it for a web application scanner. It's just the same way, right? You just have to move it to the left and determine at what stage you want this fault to be applied to your application. And it's applied, and then you observe and understand the outcome, and you get a result. And, that's the feedback loop. And then you apply it. And I mean, it finds something, and the next thing you're doing is, well, you're constructing a report, and you're sending that report to the developer and saying, well, I saw that this application is vulnerable to X and X vulnerabilities. Can you provide a fix, or maybe you recommend a fix for it?
Interesting. All right. So when you're doing that, so when we talk about like shift left, right, I mean, we can go as far as, software composition analysis, SCA, where we're looking at the actual libraries of the code that's being used, right? So that's like looking at supply chain. Then,
Yeah,
once the code is there, we can do a static code analysis prior to actually building it. We build it, we can start getting into now it's running somewhere. You can do a dynamic code analysis. Is it that stage where you start introducing security chaos engineering once the binary is built and deployed, or can you even do it before? Like if you look at from that pipe from that, and when we talk about CI/CD, we're talking about continuous integration, continuous deployment.
yeah.
Just so we could throw that out there. At what point are you now putting security chaos engineering? Is it after that build is done, or and you have something actually running, or is it from an infrastructure perspective and you have your environment? At what point during that cycle are you doing it?
Okay, so let me start from the point where what I actually practiced. It's easier to talk about what you've done. And
Of course.
so what we did was to deploy it. Let's call the post-deployment part of the CI/CD pipeline.
Got it.
So if you look at, let's say you were deploying with Terraform or with formation. So you deploy these things. The source code itself, the static code is maybe in the CI/CD pipeline, the left part of it, and you deploy it on the right part, and now you have an infrastructure living on a cloud infrastructure on a cloud platform, and this is a time where what I practice, and this is a stage where we begin to introduce
Got
faults, security faults, right? So you already have an infrastructure, whatever you want to put your serverless systems, virtual machines, containers, whatever. We were actually targeting the control plane. So we are injecting faults and trying to understand whether the system is, it's vulnerable to these faults. But I think also that I've seen people who are talking about applying it, to the CI/CD pipeline, and I think that in the end, it doesn't matter. It just you need a system to test it upon, and because it is more like a dynamic test, it's not a static test per se. Because you need dynamic test means you have a system that is deployed, and then at that point in time, so let's take for example, it was a web application server. So a web application, so meaning that you already have to deploy it. Then maybe that's in a development environment, and then you begin to introduce your faults, your attacks, and then begin to see the results and to find out whether it is able to survive certain kinds of attacks. Make
Okay.
sense?
No, it makes sense. So just to reiterate, so we can just I do this. I like to reiterate sometimes for the audience to give a summary. So we have everything built. We could even have our infrastructure as code either in Terraform or Cloud Formation. We then build this environment, right? We're not actually, we're not in the practice of actually going in and tweaking the environment once it's built. Within that, we have scripts for the security chaos engineering, whether it's through your tool CloudStrike. At that point, we start injecting faults. The results from those faults are then, I guess, it's outputted to a report, so we can kind of see what went wrong, and then we give that feedback either with recommendations back to the development. Okay, this is where it broke as a test. Here's where to fix, and then we repeat the cycle over again. Is that an accurate summary?
Yes, that's a great summary. What I want, another thing I want to add on top is, one of the ideas of the strong points of security chaos engineering is you actually want to test the security controls themselves.
Good.
So security controls are either things like firewalls, intrusion
Mhm.
detection systems, because these are, these are, let's say, we as security people, this is where we are struggling with. Yeah, as new systems begin to come, we realize that when people move to the cloud, for example, the firewalls which they were used to are not able to take care of the whole cloud infrastructure. So I give you a typical example. Firewalls cannot be deployed for S3 buckets, for example, because it doesn't, you cannot protect, you cannot put a firewall in front of the buckets. The same thing, firewalls cannot be used to protect, identity and access management systems, policies, or whatever, right? So, but the idea is you want to test, for example, whether whether the security controls are functioning the way the vendor told you they will function, or the way you configured them to function. So if they were supposed to spit out an alert when a certain event happened, you want to see whether they will spit out that alert. In this case, you're going to construct a fault that should trigger that alert and observe whether the alert is actually spitted out. This is just one. This is just one use case, which I find is the most practiced. So you're targeting your experiments against security controls. They can just be anything, but it's a security control. It should help you to maintain confidentiality. It should help you to maintain integrity. It should help you to maintain availability.
So what we refer to those three as is the CIA triad.
Exactly.
So I have a question for you. This is just, and I mean, we could like, because this interview is actually more for at time. I'm kind of selfish with my interviews in the sense that I'm actually a student. I'm actually like really curious about this stuff, so I have questions. I mean, and we just happen to be doing it online rather than a private conversation. What's the difference between that and me scanning my cloud environment with a tool and getting a lot of compliance results saying, okay, you violated this policy, you violated that? And what's the difference between me doing that and me using a security chaos engineering approach that you just described?
Yeah, that's super. So there are a lot of differences because, so if you take a so-called compliance tool, one of which is cloud security posture management. So because a CSPM is testing, maybe it has rules that are based on the Center for Internet Security AWS best practices, and then it's like checking them and ticking one after the other. So in this case, it is a security tool. It's a security control, right? Now, the security chaos engineering it's verifying whether this tool works the way you think it should work, which is something you will not know by yourself, because the tool is made. It has certain rules. What if it doesn't cover? What if there are blind spots? And what I mean by blind spots are there's an active so for example, maybe you expect the tool to give you an alert when the MFA, I'm giving an example. So for the multi-factor authentication, enablement for an S3 bucket is switched off. So when you switch it off, because it's the best practice, the tool should say, hey, this bucket doesn't have MFA switched on because the bucket has highly sensitive objects, documents. All right. So, and if this happens, yes or no, you don't know, because you expect the tool to always be correct. What if the tool is not correct? This is where this is where security chaos engineering comes in. So it's gonna switch off that MFA, and you will expect the tool to tell you it's switched off. If it doesn't tell you it was switched off, then it means the tool is failing in that regard. I mean, that's just a superficial way of looking at it. But you can go even a little bit ahead and construct hypotheses, which is just your own assumption of all kinds of things. You can implement that as attacks and see whether you have any you have any alert or you have any warning from any of your systems. Let me give you another example, right? A very practical example. This example is what happened in Capital One attack, right? So you had a front-facing reverse proxy deployed on a virtual machine, and it turns out that this reverse proxy was not protected, and it gave access, to the entire system. And the problem here is that, if you had a security chaos engineering implement that kind of attack, you will know that you have that opening. You will know that, okay, this is a problem. You could have an attacker coming through this reverse proxy, and from there he might get privileges, and then he could do all kinds of things. So currently there is really no tool that will help you to sort of understand this problem. A CSPM will not do that for you. Maybe it's not implementing certain checks. So by injecting these failures yourself, you're able to ascertain that you have a problem, and you have the opportunity to fix that problem.
Like with chaos engineering and availability, the problems are fixed dynamically, because that's the whole point of it being available. You introduce this problem. Are the problems fixed dynamically with security chaos engineering? Besides just providing the information to the developer or the infrastructure team, when these attack scenarios take place,
yeah,
and it's uncovered, is it dynamically fixed?
So I think this is more like, because there are no tools. If there were X number of tools, I would tell you, okay, this tool fixes it, the other tool just warns it. But there are no tools, so I can only say, for example, what I would feel might work. So what I might feel might work is, if you have a tool that is responsible for maybe fixing firewall rules, right? Security chaos engineering should find out the rules are wrongly configured, and give that information to that tool to fix it.
Got it.
It will do it.
It's like
This is how it should work.
Together.
Yeah, it should.
They all should be all chained together. No,
Exactly.
It's so interesting, because what we're talking about are basically things that are not yet in play. So I love the creativity, and I love these types of conversations, to be honest with you, because then sky's the limit. You're like, well, why not do this? Listen, I can literally keep you here all day, and we can get into a total intellectual go back and forth. I'm going to be cognizant of your time, because I know it's late right now. It's later on in Germany. But look, you're a friend of the show. I want to have you on periodically, and we can just dive into cloud security topics or whatever. I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I just wish you the best, man. I wish you the best when defending your dissertation, though, that's coming up this year for you, and everything. Thank you very much for joining, being the guest on the show, man. I know we've been trying to coordinate for like, I think it was like months, and you just scheduling and stuff like that. So I'm really happy you were able to join today. Can you list to the audience? I mean, like I said, once this video's out, we don't edit our video, so it's going to be there forever. If you want to post any links right now to the comments that everyone can see, or if you want a way people can find you, or you want to talk, give information about the upcoming. I know the product is right now still real raw. You guys are working through the IP and working through certain things, but any information that you want to give to the audience, please. This is the time to let them know how to find you, and post it. I'm leaving the platform open for you to do that.
Yeah, I think I already put it. I put a link in a comment section, and I see you already put.
I think you put that in the private chat. I'll move it for you and put it in the public chat.
That's true.
Yeah. Let me. Besides just putting a link, people are scared to click on things they don't understand. What wording? What description? What's this link? What's the description of it?
Okay, sorry. I'm gonna get a full link. That was one of these link shortening services that I use.
As security people, we're like skeptical. Like, I don't know. I'm not clicking on anything. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I have to just paste this link in the private chat, because I think I cannot. Yeah, so I just pasted a complete list
Okay,
Um,
cool. I'm gonna put it in the main chat right now. Let me give a description. What is this link exactly? This is this is the CloudStrike, your product?
that is the paper, an academic
Oh,
article about CloudStrike. So I guess anyone who really wants to like understand what we did and just to get deeply into this topic can actually have a read on the paper. And I think I should also paste a link of the O'Reilly book on security chaos engineering, because it is a free book. So
oh, free is good. I love free, especially if it's on Kindle. I'll download that. All right, I pasted the link. Guys, let me know if you can do me a favor, people. Click on the link. Let me know if it works for you. Let me see something real quick. Let me make sure the link is working. I'm testing. Okay, yes, a PDF. Yep. All right, the link is working on my side. I just tested it in another browser.
great.
Hey, Otto, my guy. I used to work with Otto.
Great.
Hey, Otto, nice to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I think he's in Prague. So we're international. We have like a whole got European connections in here. Nice to see you, Otto. Are you gonna and you want to put the oh you what we have the book next, right?
Yeah, I just put in the link to the O'Reilly security chaos engineering book. I guess it's free. People just have to fill in a form with a couple of information.
I'm typing it right now. Security chaos
Oh,
engineering book.
you're typing the information, right?
Yeah, I try not to put links about this. I'm telling you, man, people are skeptical. Like it's a couple of breaches we could talk about in which people clicked on a link they thought was cool, and uh, um, it turned out that it was a phishing campaign of some sort.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
all right, so we have all right, so you have the book, you have the we have another somebody. Oh, look who's tuning in. Dr. Nnamdi Osuagwu. That's my sister. She's
Oh,
yeah, she's a OBGYN in Ohio Health. So thank you for tuning in. Appreciate you, sis.
that's a great support for you, man. You got sister coming
And
to support you.
she
It's great.
she called me this morning and I was like, I'm preparing for the show. She said, oh, I'm sorry. I said, well, you can actually watch the show. It's at 12 p.m. EST. I think she is off today. So I'm happy
Yeah,
that I hope the technology talks she did it. Her field is medicine, so she's getting
yeah.
exposed. She's getting exposed. This conversation is not just like she's getting exposed to deep security in this conversation. So that's cool.
Yeah.
So last question: how can people find you, Kennedy?
Well, people can find me on my LinkedIn, on my Twitter. So I guess I will just quickly paste my LinkedIn URL account there. So I guess I'm very open to LinkedIn messages and all that kind of stuff. Twitter, let's see. Twitter also is good these days. I think a lot of people are on Twitter. Are
Funny
you on
man.
Twitter?
I'm on Twitter. I'm not as act like you know what I'm on Twitter for. Full disclosure, I just advertise the show on Twitter now, man. I just like I go on Twitter. I'm like, yo, we have a Tech Behind FinTech. Like you could catch me on Twitter every week. I'm for business. I'm primarily LinkedIn, and for like my social life with
Yeah.
technology, I do like a fitness, martial arts stuff. I'm on Instagram, but I post the show stuff on Instagram. Those are the main two that I use. I'm on Facebook. That's like a little bit more private, and but I have the show page on Facebook. But like I said, I'm on Twitter, but I'm not as active. So if you tweet me and get a message next month, it is what it is. That's my story.
All right.
Let me put your contact. But IG though, I'm big on IG.
So
I'm putting in your Twitter right now. And all right, cool. I'm pasting the links right now, and then that's cool, man. So these, and what's good about this platform that I'm using is that it's now all the comments are going on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and we are also on Twitch.
awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
these
man.
days, everybody runs a publishing home. So this is a publishing platform.
Listen, man, you're your own brand. I'm a thorough believer in that. I think this conversation, the good thing about these types of conversations is that if you're not watching it now, somebody may stumble on this 2 years ago. Like even
Yeah.
for this show, right? I was like, oh gosh, I want to look, I want to get more information. So I just put your name in YouTube. Boom, I saw a presentation, this thing, and I listened to it. So
Oh,
someone can do the same. Yeah, I'm not a
thank you for that.
professional. I'm not a journalist by trade, but I do my
Yeah.
homework. I
Yeah.
try to
Sure.
come prepared. So, but yeah, so I listen to it. I mean, the same thing could happen now. Like in the future, someone can be cast engineering, security care. They put it in, it's there. So I like, that's why I love these conversations. It's just there. And what's going to be great when we talk after in the future after CloudStrike comes out, it will be great to revisit this conversation when we are talking about more stuff, and then when we actually have a product. I know it's definitely going to work for you, and I'm so excited for it, man. For real, like it's really
Thank you.
awesome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's a lot of work, and I'm so happy for the support I'm getting from you, and the words of encouragement. And yeah, I'm so happy. Thank you so much.
No problem at all. Listen, so to everyone, that is the end of the show. Thanks for hanging in with us. I know we said 12 to 12:30, but sometimes these things do go over. And this is a lot of info. Have a great weekend. Happy Friday. Hope everyone enjoys their. I think in the U.S., I don't know if it's universal, but I know we're celebrating Father's Day weekend. So to all fathers out there, happy Father's Day in advance. And yeah, man, take care. Kennedy, stay online. I'll talk to you offline after we get
Sure,
off.
sure.